Our tale begins with a boy named Haru, tormented and trapped in the shadows of middle school bullying. Years passed as he locked himself away, never stepping outside. Then, one fateful day, he realizes he's already passed beyond this life. A goddess appears whispering of a chance to be reborn into a world brimming with magic. She promises to grant him extraordinary skills to navigate this new life. To Haru, all he craves is peace, a calm existence, where he can lounge, watch anime, and play games without a care. But then, a sudden transformation sweeps over him. What in the world? Why am I wrapped in diapers? It hits him. Rebirth means starting anew, as a helpless infant. Yet the surprise deepens as he reshapes his form and discovers his true identity. A prince born into a grand kingdom. A life of luxury servants and endless leisure seems within reach. But joy is short-lived. The author's hand slams him back to earth, literally. The Royal Mage's assessment reveals Haru's power is painfully low, barely scraping level 2. The king and his advisors are shocked disappointment clouding their faces. Haru's heart sinks, realizing his strength falls far short of expectations in this new realm. Faced with this harsh reality, Haru steels himself, determined to carve out a happy life. With the goddess's gifts as his shield, he vows to overcome every trial ahead. Yet fate seems relentless. His magic, limited to a mere shield spell, lacks any elemental power. The royal council doubts him, whispering he's only fit to cast barriers. The king cannot fathom his own son's weakness. Fearful the truth will fracture the kingdom's spirit. They spread the rumor that the newborn prince died young, an attempt to soothe the people's restless hearts. Dead so soon after birth, it's like the heavens are mocking him. But whether he accepts it or not, this is his cruel reality. Helpless Haru watches as the king orders him abandoned deep in a remote forest. The goddess, panicked by this oversight, realizes her mistake. Distracted by celestial dramas, she accidentally bestowed upon Haru a power level of 102, a strength unseen by any in this era. Yet the kingdom's archaic measuring tools fail to recognize such overwhelming might. Left alone in the wilderness, powerless in the form of a baby, Haru recalls his soul magic, the shield spell. He dares to test it, imagining a solid block forming in his mind. To his relief, the block materializes perfectly. He finds he can effortlessly control the block's size and shape, bending it to his will. Next, he tries it on himself, and to his astonishment, he floats gently above the ground. This simple shield magic may just be the key to survival. Just as hope flickers, the author isn't done tormenting Haru yet. At that very moment, a mysterious figure appears. End of provided script. A colossal wolf suddenly bursts onto the scene, sending Haru into a panic. Yet by a stroke of luck, he is shielded by his magical barrier. Haru summons multiple barriers, but to the giant wolf, those blocks are like mere specks of dust, completely harmless, dealing no damage whatsoever. Faced with the wolf, Haru decides to strike back with something bigger. He conjures larger, more powerful barriers, wielding the strength of a charging bull. With a fierce resolve, he uproots trees around him, moulding massive blocks, and without hesitation, he hurls them straight at the monstrous beast. Yet to his shock, the wolf remained standing after that attack. If this doesn't work, I'll try something even bigger, Haru thought. He prepared to unleash a colossal boulder, ready to crush the beast. However, just as he was about to strike, he heard a voice, an unexpected declaration of surrender. Confused, Haru searched for the source but couldn't pinpoint where it came from, so he continued his assault. It wasn't until the wolf spoke again that realization struck him. It could talk. What a curious creature, he mused. Is this wolf truly unique? The wolf, astonished by Haru's immense power, began to doubt that he was an ordinary human. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Haru tried to communicate using his barrier magic to turn his thoughts into sound. He introduced himself, confessing he had been abandoned due to his low powers. However, the wolf was skeptical, sensing the massive strength within Haru. It immediately assumed he must be the reincarnated demon lord. To ensure his safety, Haru decided to play along, admitting to being the demon lord. Instantly, he earned the wolf's unwavering trust. The wolf then submitted, begging Haru to end its life. But Haru had no desire for bloodshed. "This time I'll spare you," he replied. "Just remember this favor, and don't attack me in the future." The wolf could hardly believe Haru's mercy. With an oath on its honor as a flame fen, the wolf vowed to be eternally grateful. Haru bid farewell playfully, naming it FL. To his surprise, the wolf misunderstood, thinking Haru had given it a name, and proclaimed they had forged a bond of loyalty. Now, Haru found himself burdened by an unexpected pact with a wolf. He wanted to refuse, but at that moment he suddenly felt his strength drain, collapsing to the ground. FL, sensing something was off, realized Haru needed nourishment. Understanding Haru's need, FL transformed into a human form completely unclothed. The sight was quite shocking, yet Haru felt an awkward shyness wash over him. In an instant, he summoned an outfit to cover himself, but upon wearing it, he noticed it accentuated his curves even more. "Oh, Buddha, I'm just a kid," he thought, trying to focus on self-control and not let his mind wander to inappropriate thoughts. Meanwhile, FL planned to prepare milk for him, but without any available, she contemplated mating with him instead, believing that would ensure she'd produce milk when she had a baby. I was left speechless by her logic. Suddenly, FL heard someone approaching and wondered whether to attack. But Haru calmly suggested, "Hold on, let's talk first." He established a Bluetooth connection between himself and FL, allowing them to communicate even from afar. As a man approached, FL went on high alert, demanding to know why he was there. He claimed he had come to find Haru, the newly reborn demon lord. FL wasn't about to hand over Haru to a stranger that easily. Seeing FL's reluctance, the man grew curious about their relationship. She asserted that Haru was her tiny master. The man introduced himself as a relative of Haru, claiming he was here to save him. He showed them a royal insignia. FL recognized it belonged to the royal family. Haru, sensing the truth in the man's words, agreed to go with him. However, he refused to go alone, and the man urged FL to accompany him, explaining he wanted her to help deceive the king. He was quite the professional, smashing a crib and spilling blood to create a false scene reminiscent of a Korean detective drama. Years later, in a grand castle, Haru was raised and sheltered by the family of a frontier count. Initially, he planned to leave after weaning, but surrounded by warmth and kindness, he found it hard to part ways. Yet one thing lingered in Haru's mind: his adorable little sister. Although he hadn't interacted with her directly, she always seemed frightened and kept her distance. But somehow, thanks to FL, she became attached to him. Watching her play joyfully, Haru felt a pang of worry. Their mother reassured him that his sister wasn't avoiding him out of hate. She simply didn't know how to interact with an older boy. This revelation sent Haru into a panic. Could it be that my little sister sensed I was a nearly 30-year-old man inside? The thought overwhelmed him. As he pondered this, he longed to be independent and live on his own, yet if FL went with him, it would only drive his sister further away. For 9 years, he had immersed himself in studying barrier magic, and had even managed to create a robot that resembled himself, although it still lacked the ability to speak or move. Now he contemplated crafting a doll that looked like FL, when a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. His father called for him, asking him to come outside for sword training. He believed that aside from studying ancient magic, Haru was still too weak and needed to train in other disciplines. But Haru protested, insisting he needed to stay in his room to study ancient magic. For the past 9 years, his resentment towards his older brother had festered. Haru dedicated himself to the study of barrier magic, and even managed to create a robot that resembled him. However, it remained incomplete, unable to speak or move. Now he pondered crafting a new doll. Just then, a knock at the door broke his thoughts. It was a message from his father calling him to the training grounds for sword practice. His father believed that, aside from studying ancient magic, Haru was still too weak and needed to explore other skills. However, Haru insisted he needed to return to his research. As he considered sneaking away, his father called him back with a serious tone. Today, he needed to test his swordsmanship before the upcoming battle. A powerful aura radiated from his father, known as the town's warrior. Haru knew that facing him head-on was a lost cause. To ensure his safety, Haru quickly wrapped himself in a barrier. With a leap, he attacked, shattering his father's sword cleanly in two. This astonished Goha's father. His father retaliated, but Haru effortlessly dodged the blow. He believed that such an attack could never be evaded by anyone below level 30. Haru recalled his recent experiment with magic, only to find his power still woefully low. He was baffled by the absence of magical attributes. Haru wondered where the cheat ability the god had bestowed upon him had gone. After a moment of contemplation, his father concluded that Haru was an amateur and needed much more training. That night, he stayed behind with Haru. Coincidentally, rumors had been swirling lately that the Demon Lord had reincarnated in the human realm. Fly, a member of the demon race, faithfully followed and served Haru, which hinted at his possible lineage. Yet, after spending time with him, they still believed in Haru's goodness, thinking he was not evil. Charlotte, overhearing their conversation, also mused that her brother couldn't possibly be of the demon race. A few days later, while Haru was resting in his room, he heard commotion outside. Curious, he activated the magic camera to assess the situation, and was shocked to see numerous injured soldiers. He rushed to his father to inquire further, and learned they had been ambushed by thieves, resulting in many casualties. After grasping the situation, Haru prepared to leave, but Fly expressed disdain, criticizing everyone for being too weak and allowing the thieves to win. Enveloped in an aura of black energy, Haru silenced her, instilling a fear that rendered her speechless. As he passed by the injured, he unleashed his healing abilities, astonishingly restoring all the soldiers in an instant. Later that night, as Haru slept, he sent someone outside and went to investigate. It turned out to be Fly standing there. He recalled how he had commanded silence earlier, and it seemed that was why she had remained here until now. Haru thought it was foolish of her to listen so intently, apologizing for his outburst earlier, explaining that he was simply a bit heated. Now, Fly was allowed to speak freely. However, Fly acknowledged her own fault, admitting she deserved his reprimand. Afterward, Haru utilized his skills to track down the thieves. After some searching, he found them, but to his surprise there were also soldiers from the kingdom, among them, likely spies. Haru resolved to confront them and eliminate this threat. It turned out that the silver-haired leader was boasting about how he had managed to frighten Haru's father into fleeing. Yet all their plans were overheard by Haru, who stood nearby. They panicked and attempted to attack, but he swiftly immobilized them with magic. One of them babbled nonsense and was sent crashing into the wall. Haru resolved to find those thieves. After a considerable search, he discovered them, but to his surprise, soldiers from the kingdom were among them. Perhaps they were double agents. Haru decided to confront them to eliminate their threat. It turned out that the silver-haired leader was boasting about how he had frightened Haru's father into fleeing. Yet all their plans unraveled as Haru overheard them. As they panicked and attempted to attack, he immobilized them with magic. One of them rambled on, only to be sent crashing into a wall by Haru. After interrogating them, he learned that these were soldiers disguised as thieves infiltrating to create chaos within. Surely this plan was orchestrated by those in power, even his own father. Haru realized there were those within the kingdom targeting his family. The thieves thought they would be spared after confessing, but Haru had other plans. He declared he would burn the entire fortress to the ground as he departed. They begged for mercy, but Haru wouldn't let them escape. He set the flames ablaze, incinerating everything. He instructed FL to send an anonymous letter to his father detailing the events of the previous night and the kingdom's conspiracy. The next morning, the letter reached his father's hands, revealing the shocking involvement of the noble family. This revelation left him reeling, as it implicated the Charlotte family. He pondered who could have sent such a letter, thinking of only one person capable of wielding fire and burning down a fortress, Haru himself. Indeed, it was her. She wandered around taming magical beasts in her territory, her powers even surpassing his own. Gold suspected that Fly had come across her and decided to deal with that situation. Upon hearing this, Charlotte rushed to the door, declaring she would go out to play her face, set in a serious expression. It seemed she had discovered the truth about her brother. To confirm her suspicion, she approached him, recounting how she had spotted a shadow resembling her brother flying the night before. However, thinking he lacked magic and couldn't fly, she went to check on him, only to find him sleeping, devoid of the terrifying aura he usually exuded. Charlotte felt a pang of worry. Fly, upon hearing this, began to boast about Haru's abilities, stating that he had possessed immense magical power since he was a mere infant, a force so formidable that even magical beasts like her could not reach such heights. In conclusion, Haru was truly an extraordinary individual. Charlotte asked Fly if she was aware of his true identity. While she understood he was a reincarnated demon lord, she could not divulge it. Fly advised her not to dwell too much on it, or her body would struggle to grow. Haru soon heard everything from Fly. She recounted all that Charlotte had asked to ensure the little girl wouldn't do anything reckless again. He set up a barrier to monitor Charlotte and equipped a warning bell to alert him whenever she ventured out. That night, as Haru went to the restroom, just as predicted, Charlotte was following him. When caught, she darted off to hide, thinking the bathroom would be a safe haven. However, she found Charlotte hiding nearby. In the following days, she continued to shadow him as usual, and this went on for an entire week. Each day, she followed Haru during dinner. Their father announced that their mother and Charlotte would be attending the annual festival. Normally, he would go, but this time, the two of them would go in his place. Haru suggested they take Fra along for safety. Speaking of which, he remembered that he had sent her to scare off the magical beasts around to prevent them from attacking the village and town. The next day, while Haru was resting, the barrier connected to him alerted him of danger nearby. Indeed, they were under attack. His mother and Charlotte were being chased away. At that moment, a strange box appeared nearby, instructing the little girl to guide her mother. Although she didn't know who was directing her, jumping down seemed excessive and dangerous. With no other choice, she used magic to control her descent. After that, Charlotte continued to lead her to a cave illuminated by bioluminescent moss. There was no way to hide safely here. She left Charlotte inside and decided to go outside to seek help. As she stepped out, she realized the entrance was magically disguised. At that moment, the attackers arrived, and since they couldn't find the child, they split up to search for her. Not wanting to be taken captive, she drew a knife, threatening to take her own life if they came closer. As the blade drew near her neck, it shattered and she collapsed. Haru appeared furious that they dared to harm his family. He let out a roar that sent the attackers flying. Charlotte, hiding inside, prayed for her mother's safety. Haru carried her inside, instructing her to stay by their mother's side until help arrived. Although she felt terrified by the overwhelming aura radiating from her brother, she silently thanked him for saving both her and their mother. After a moment, Charlotte mustered her courage and asked Haru if he was an ally of justice. Upon hearing his answer, she apologized for misunderstanding him all this time. Haru asked her to keep this a secret, for his true identity must remain hidden. She understood and promised to lie to their father about today's events. After everything was settled, Haru left to avoid revealing his identity. That night, Haru's father received word about today's incident, and Fly was escorting them back. However, there was something strange. The soldiers' wounds healed immediately. Gold, upon learning someone had aided them, felt somewhat relieved and wanted to meet this person to thank them. He turned to Haru, asking for his opinion about this individual. Haru replied that if this person hadn't done anything malicious, they couldn't be an enemy. He recalled that Charlotte had mentioned this person was an ally of justice. Therefore, they needed to assess the situation for a while. At that moment, Haru casually mentioned that Imperial soldiers had disguised themselves as bandits, suggesting that this person had likely helped them deal with them. Gold asked how he knew they were Imperial soldiers. Haru explained that his mother and sister had been targeted, leading him to think that actual bandits would definitely attack the town. He then prompted his father to consider how easily the attackers had crossed the border. After some contemplation, Gold realized they indeed had allies assisting them. At that moment, Charlotte and their mother returned home. Gold joyfully embraced both of them. Then Charlotte rushed to hug her brother excitedly, asking when the two siblings had grown so close. Charlotte answered that it depended on the time and circumstances, and being a child like this was good. This subtle remark made their parents ponder something, but overall she would now deeply cherish her brother, unlike before. Fly, witnessing this scene, was extremely upset, scolding the little girl for getting too familiar with her Haru. After that day, Charlotte became infatuated with her incredibly talented older brother. In her eyes, there was only him, and no one else. Previously feeling neglected had been quite unpleasant, but now, having her cling to him like a tail didn't feel too bad at all. Haru's mother reflected on her thoughts, concluding that from now on she would be utterly fond of her older brother, unlike before. Fly, witnessing this, was furious, yelling at her for being so familiar with his Haru. After that day, Charlotte could only see her brilliant older brother, in her eyes no one else. Previously ignored, she now clung to him like a shadow. Thanks to his extraordinary talents, Haru began creating a barrier that connected to the internet of Japan. He introduced Charlotte to the hottest anime from Japan, and thus she spiraled into an anime obsession. So enamored was she that she insisted Haru dress up as a superhero to battle the thieves for her entertainment. Initially, he found it absurd and flatly refused. However, facing his sister's sparkling eyes, he couldn't bear to turn her down. He reluctantly donned the superhero mask and stepped into the setup for the performance displayed on the large screen at home. Haru approached the thieves and began his act. After countless battles, Charlotte grew more fond of this game, while Haru felt the opposite. Each time he completed a mission, he found himself exhausted, as if studying for finals. However, after days of relentless toil, he successfully created a moving robot in his likeness. He imagined having someone to carry out his errands, but unfortunately it ignored his commands. It was as if it had a mind of its own choosing, instead to curl up and sleep. Today, his father instructed him to dress appropriately for a visit, since they were to host two very important guests, one a princess and the other a prince, with some powerful background. However, these two nobles insisted on visiting the distant, desolate borderlands instead of the royal palace. Upon seeing Haru, the prince took a moment to think, then seemed to recall something. He gazed at Haru, declaring him the weak child abandoned by the king. This immediately ignited the arrogant temperament of Leos, compelling him to challenge Haru to a duel. He assumed that a low-level child like Haru would pose no threat to a noble like himself. After all, he was a prince, and Haru's family couldn't refuse him. But in truth, Haru had never backed down from anyone. "I'll take care of you properly from start to finish." The moment Leos lunged for the first strike, Haru swiftly dodged, causing the sword to slice through empty air. Furious Leos commanded him not to run away, but Haru had no intention of backing down. He activated his magic resistance, allowing him to withstand Leos's blows without feeling a thing. Growing tired of Haru's unwillingness to submit, Leos finally suggested he should retaliate. "Oh, I've been waiting for this moment." With that, Haru prepared to respond, eager to show what he could truly do. The prince, in all his grandeur, stumbled face first into the dirt. Haru, reveling in his victory, continued to dish out the lessons, leaving the princess in disbelief at her younger brother's defeat. Could it be true Haru just a level 2? Even their father stood by, equally astonished. But Haru, refusing to be outdone, stood back up and conjured tiny fireballs, launching them towards his opponent. Yet every fireball that flew forth was absorbed by him. "Is that the fireball spell you just used?" Haru taunted. "Let me return it all to you, no leftovers." With a cannonball-sized fireball now in hand, the prince's face, drained of colour, terror etched across his features. He willingly bowed down, conceding defeat. Understanding the situation, the princess humbly apologized to Haru on behalf of her brother. In the days that followed, too busy to keep watch over the bandits, Haru entrusted his sister with the task. Suddenly, Fly appeared, insisting on joining to ensure their master's safety. Charlotte agreed, but Haru protested, claiming she was swamped with cleaning up magical beasts. Yet Fly argued she had already finished that task and was now free to assist. Reluctantly, Haru had no choice but to accept. That night, both prepared to confront the vile crew. Haru warned Fly that any overly intimate displays were strictly forbidden. Under the moonlight, a group of thieves revelled in their spoils, knowing the profits would keep them fed for quite a while. Suddenly, Haru appeared cloaked in black, accompanied by Fly donned in her tight-fitting outfit. Though she concealed her face, she introduced herself, revealing the identity of the Sly Fox. The robbers, clueless about what was unfolding, faced the brunt of Fly's fiery wrath as she taught them the taste of being roasted. Thankfully, Haru had erected a barrier to protect them. Otherwise, they would have been nothing but charred remains. Fly, noticing her attacks were ineffective, contemplated using something stronger. However, Haru, wielding her hammer from behind, halted her immediately. Haru reminded Fly that such excessive actions were off-limits. Understanding the threat they posed to their master, she ignited the flames anew. With that, Haru sent Fly home, vowing to deal with the finality herself. Back home, Fly couldn't fathom why her strikes bore no fruit, seemingly oblivious to Haru's interference. Exhausted, Haru lay face down on her bed. Meanwhile, her sister and Fly were lost in fantasies of scenes from films they had seen in the royal palace. Fly was still fuming over her defeat at the hands of a mere level 2. Unaware that all her attacks are being effortlessly blocked by their true owner, Haru lies exhausted face down on his bed. Meanwhile, his sister and Fly below remain lost in dreams mimicking poses from movies she once saw at the royal palace, yet Lai seethes with anger over her recent defeat. Just then, the butler and steward arrive, summoning Haru to a banquet currently underway. While changing clothes, they remind him to invite Charlotte to tomorrow's inspection. Curious, Haru asks why Charlotte must be invited, only to receive the reply that he might need company along the way to stave off boredom. Scoffing, Haru dismisses the idea, but the steward's expression hardens. This is a royal command and also a test of the Crown Prince's judgment. With no choice, Haru reluctantly agrees to the request. That night, Charlotte and Haru's clone return from the banquet. The door opening so suddenly startles Haru, but thankfully he hasn't done anything wrong. Charlotte apologizes, promising next time to knock louder like a feast bursting with light and grandeur. Behind them, Haru's clone radiates a dark, foul aura. It lashes out, blaming Haru for sending it into the crowd. It complains bitterly about carrying all Haru's burdens and nonsense. After venting, it leaps onto the bed and falls into a deep sleep. Even Charlotte feels sorry for this poor double. Soon after, Charlotte announces that the Crown Prince has invited her to tomorrow's inspection. Haru mistakenly thinks this means Charlotte is Lolly's substitute, hoping his clone can help for one more day. But, sensing trouble, he decides against it. To ensure safety, Haru surveys the route he'll take tomorrow. At that moment, he discovers a group of people engaged in some mysterious activity. With no other choice, Haru approaches to investigate. The group is casting spells, startled by his sudden appearance. When asked who he is and why he's there, Haru replies he's just observing and mentions that Count Goldenfish will soon arrive for an inspection. Recognizing Haru as an ally of the Count, the group immediately prepares to ambush him. But Haru isn't about to stand still and wait for death. With a simple flick of his hand, he dispatches the entire squad before them. The leader, realizing Haru is no ordinary opponent, calls forth a horde of real zombies to fight him. At first glance, these undead minions seem fascinating to Haru. He even imagines taking them home as pets. But since they are enemies, he must eliminate them. The zombies rush at him wildly. Haru dodges and slashes with lightning speed, turning flesh to pulp and bones to dust. However, being zombies, they quickly recover from his attacks. This battle will drain his energy. Noticing a glowing red eye on their chests, Haru swiftly uses magic to manipulate those eyes, twisting their minds. Unexpectedly, all the fiery red eyes shift to a calm blue, and the zombies turn to aid Haru against the mages. The tide has turned. What was once a deadly trap now backfires. The lead mage refuses to surrender and summons a massive golem to fight. This giant beast dwarfs the little pests before, and Haru's psychological tricks fail on it. Even with his protective barrier, the golem's punch sends him crashing into a tree. Realizing his mistake, Haru switches tactics, creating a spiked barrier aimed directly at the golem's glowing red chest mark. As expected, Haru's mind control takes hold of the golem. Without its support, the mages are swiftly overwhelmed by their own summoned skeletons. Haru approaches the leader, questioning the purpose of this ambush. At first, the leader resists, but when Haru threatens to expose his followers, he reluctantly spills the truth. All this chaos is orchestrated by the Queen. They are training monsters to assassinate Charlotte during tomorrow's inspection. The Queen fears that if Lord G produces an heir, the Empire's power will be split. Suddenly, everything clicks for Haru, the mastermind behind the kingdom's army attacking his father. The assassin who killed his mother and Charlotte that day was this very scheming Queen. Memories flood back of the day she cast him aside. Haru's fury burns hotter than a wild beast's if a tiger won't devour its cub. Then what of a mother who discards her own child for ambition? She dares to threaten his beloved family, even as his blood relative. Haru vows he will never forgive her. The next day, escorted by his father and Haru, travels with Charlotte to the inspection. Though the kids still harbour grudges, they quickly bond. After all, they are just children. The prince dislikes Haru, but Charlotte is surprisingly friendly. Princess Marion wonders how Haru managed to boost his power so much yesterday. Haru candidly admits it was just a simple enchantment. Upon hearing this, both Lai and Marion are struck like lightning. Only the demon clan can do such a thing. They suspect Haru might be a reincarnated demon. Both are children born from human and demon lineage, bearing strong magical power and distinct demon traits. Yet Haru's handsome pale appearance shows no horns or tail. Confused, they let the mystery slide, deciding to focus on the borderlands of the neighbouring country instead. Upon arrival, everyone is awestruck, lost in the breathtaking fields that seem to ensnare souls. While Charlotte, Lai, and Marion play together, Haru seeks out his father for a private talk. he tentatively asks Gold if the Queen might have ulterior motives. While strong, there's something oddly captivating about Haru. His handsome, fair complexion seems to lack the ears and tail typical of his kind. The more they ponder, the more confusing it becomes. But as the saying goes, if something is too perplexing, it's best to let it go. So the Marian sisters decide to set aside their curiosity about Haru's origins for now. Upon arriving at their destination, everyone is awestruck, lost in the breathtaking beauty of the fields around them. While Charlotte La and Marian frolic together, Haru finds a moment to sit with his father Gold. Nervously, he broaches the subject, asking what Gold would do if the Queen had intentions towards Charlotte. But after his question, he hesitates, fearing his father might suspect why he knows such things. Yet Gold shows no signs of doubt. Instead, he reveals a letter from a dark warrior that had arrived yesterday, which was actually a cleverly disguised letter from Haru himself after uncovering the Queen's secret. Upon arriving at the location mentioned in the letter, Gold notices the Queen's subordinates and is left with no doubt. He realizes the Queen has always harbored ill intentions towards him, but he never expected her to wish harm upon Charlotte. Although concerned for his daughter, Gold knows that, given the Queen's position, he cannot confront her directly. Haru reflects on this, contemplating why he doesn't just ensure the Queen meets her end once and for all. As if sensing Haru's thoughts, Gold gently pats his head and explains, "You must understand the Queen's influence in the court is immense. 2 years ago, after the king's death, she gained considerable power. Many nobles eye the throne, but out of respect for her status, they've refrained from action until now. In short, if anything were to happen to the Queen, a civil war would surely erupt in the kingdom." Gold continues revealing that during the war with the demon race, the Queen killed the demon king, earning her the title of the Radiant Princess, and subsequently leading to her ascent as queen. Her influence has remained steadfast ever since. Yet recently her ambitions have grown bolder. She seems determined to seize control of the entire nation, and should someone stronger rise to dethrone her, Gold would not hesitate to see her removed. In his heart, he knows there is someone deserving to take her place, but that person must mature first. This individual possesses extraordinary power that could surpass the Queen's, yet remains blissfully unaware of it. Those listening can easily guess who Gold refers to, but in our household, we interpret it differently. He is placing his hopes on his clever and promising daughter, Charlotte. Their conversation continues a back-and-forth exchange as Haru vows to protect Charlotte from the Queen's malicious intentions. He is determined to be her steadfast support as she ascends to the throne. Fleikoi, eager to assist Haru in taking the Queen down, is met with a firm refusal. This is a personal battle between Haru and her. Recently, the Queen's ambitions have become unmistakably clear. She craves control over the entire nation. If someone stronger than her rises, the Count wouldn't hesitate to send her to the gallows. In his heart, he already has someone worthy in mind, but for now, that person remains unseen. He needed to grow beyond ordinary men possessing extraordinary power to surpass the Queen, yet he remained blind to it. Everyone could tell who the Count was hinting at, right? But in our house, the meaning got twisted, as if he was pinning his hopes on the brilliant and promising younger sister Charlotte. The conversation became a game of crossed wires. He said chicken, she heard duck. Amid this confusion, you vowed to protect Charlotte from the Queen's schemes, determined to be her steadfast shield. Fleikoi wanted to help Haru eliminate the Queen, but he flatly refused. This was a battle just between him and the Queen herself. The cold, emotional reunion of mother and child was about to unfold. Meanwhile, inside the palace, the Queen lounged arrogantly, sipping wine as her minions reported news. Hearing about a dark knight aiding the Count, her fury ignited. Yet she remained confident, believing herself the strongest, eager to face the Dark Knight personally. But no sooner had she spoken than she saw Haru in his Dark Knight form standing before her. At the sight of Haru, the Queen's soldiers quickly took defensive positions to shield her. But with just a few holy blocks conjured by Haru, the entire squad was effortlessly dispatched. The Queen wondered how he had breached her fortress, especially since she had sealed every inch with powerful barriers. Wasn't she meticulous with her defences? She had, indeed, laid down every protective spell, but to Haru, those were mere scraps easily shattered with a flick of his hand. Unaware of the true extent of his power, she haughtily sneered. "If you've come here seeking death, I will gladly grant it." The queen unleashed magical circles, binding Haru tightly within their grasp. But this was only the beginning of a clash between two forces destined to collide. One, fueled by cold resolve, the other by unyielding will. The queen's magic sought to cage him, but Haru's spirit burned too fiercely to be contained. Enveloped in a sphere of water, the queen believed he would surely suffocate within her watery prison. But don't celebrate too soon, old lady obsessed with your magic. I could easily escape realizing this. The queen unleashed a barrage of ice rain targeting him relentlessly. After successfully blocking her second wave of attacks, the queen understood she could no longer rely on magic against him, and switched tactics, launching a massive fire blast aimed at incinerating him. He felt the heat smoke rising from his body, and the queen couldn't help but feel victorious. Is that all the infernal warrior is capable of? Haru admired his cruel mother, who possessed a wealth of magical abilities. Yet it wasn't enough. He was determined to show her what true strength meant. With an overwhelming force, he retaliated, causing the queen's magical reserves to dwindle before this extraordinary might. She had to concede that even the Demon King from before was nothing compared to him. If he didn't launch an attack now, she would lose all her magical prowess. This time she resorted to using a sword. "You like swords? Very well. I'll oblige." If she believed her strength made her the strongest in the world, then to Haru she was still a mere novice. He easily overpowered her with a single counterattack. The sacred sword she prided herself on was sent flying without a trace of mercy. Without waiting for her to gather herself after the clash, he fastened a heavy iron collar around the queen's neck. If she stubbornly refused to comply, her head would soon part ways with her body. "Be wise. Stay away from the Count's family. Don't disturb the waters where you drink. If you don't wish to join the ancestors, you should obediently follow my orders." With that, he flicked his cloak and left her behind, heartbroken and tear-soaked. Wasn't this akin to living as a slave? As he departed, he felt he was too generous toward the queen. However, the current situation was too precarious. He couldn't act against her just yet, so he decided to keep her under control for now. 5 years passed in peace, and the queen, it seemed, truly dared not send anyone to disturb his family anymore. Now, at 15 years old, Haru observed that Charlotte was still a little anime addict, while Flight occasionally engaged in her usual nonsensical antics. The winter weather had blanketed everything in white snow. He took Flight and Charlotte outside to play. Watching them endure the cold made him feel in awe, especially Flight when he asked her if she wasn't cold dressed in just her maid outfit. However, this was her favourite maid outfit, so she reluctantly wore it. On the surface, she seemed fine, but deep inside, her tears were an ocean wide. Seeing that Flight was about to freeze, Haru cast a warm winter outfit on her and told her to be honest about her feelings. In the future, no need to overexert herself. In response to his gentle demeanour, Flight was gradually falling for him. Meanwhile, Charlotte wanted him to use snow to fulfill a request of hers. Though he had a foreboding feeling about it, he indulged his innocent little sister and started performing ridiculous tricks for her amusement. Despite feeling a bit embarrassed, bringing joy to Charlotte was worth it. Their parents happened to walk by and joined in on the fun as well. They noticed the hole he had just created, worried that they might discover his powers. Quickly, he conjured a dummy of a dark warrior and blamed it for making the hole. Thanks to Charlotte's seamless cooperation, he successfully diverted his parents' attention. Seizing the opportunity while everyone played in the snow, Haru chatted with his father. He expressed confusion over why the Queen's Shadow Army had been inactive for so long. However, according to him, she rarely appeared in public these days. Rumours circulated that she was under restraint by a collar initially thought to be a trendy accessory. But as time passed, speculation grew that it was actually a means of confinement. In light of all this, he felt relieved that the Queen was no longer causing trouble and could live peacefully in a drama-free kingdom. Finally, he could pursue his long-held dream of living off others, but just as he was reveling in this thought, disaster struck when he heard his father suggest that starting tomorrow he should attend school in the capital. What? His mood plummeted into despair. Having endured enough bullying in his previous life, he outright refused the idea of going to school. but his father insisted, citing an edict from the king. It was unclear why the king was paying attention to him, or perhaps it was the queen who was urging him to go, especially after hearing the praises from Princess Marion. Regardless of the reason, the decree had been issued, and he couldn't ignore it. Moreover, as a father, he desired for Haru to explore the vast world and grow. This could be a great opportunity for him to learn. Faced with his father's caring intentions, Haru couldn't bring himself to refuse. Thus, he reluctantly agreed. As for choosing a servant to accompany him, he still had no idea whom to take. Flight was capable, but also quite troublesome, and he wasn't comfortable being around strangers, so he decided to put that on hold for now. Upon returning to his room, Haru hinted at asking his clone to attend school for him. Even though he pleaded persistently, the clone wouldn't agree. Not to mention, it couldn't even use magic. If anything happened, he'd be doomed. Yet that was precisely Haru's plan. He wanted to attend school under the guise of being useless, so the king would be disappointed and expel him. When his father suggested that from tomorrow he should attend school in the royal capital, a storm of dread crashed down upon him. His heart plummeted to hell itself after all the scars from past school violence still haunted him, so he outright refused his father's proposal. Yet his father brought a royal decree, an order from the king himself. Why the king had taken notice of him remained a mystery. Perhaps the queen secretly pulled strings behind the scenes, or maybe it was Princess Marion's praise that tipped the scales. Whatever the reason, a royal command could not be ignored. Moreover, as his father, he wished for his son to step outside the sheltered world and witness the vastness beyond, to grow and learn from the wider world. This might be a precious chance to broaden his horizons. Faced with such heartfelt concern, Haru couldn't bring himself to refuse, so he reluctantly agreed. As for choosing a servant to accompany him, Haru was still undecided. The feisty yet troublesome girl was a candidate, but he wasn't used to strangers around him, so that matter was put on hold. Back in his room, he hinted at having his clone attend school in his place, but despite all his pleading, the clone refused. Not to mention the clone couldn't even use magic. If danger appeared, it would be doomed. But this was exactly Haru's plan, to send a seemingly useless identity to school, causing the king to lose faith and expel him. Finally, faced with the clone's stubborn refusal, Haru resorted to threats. If you don't agree, I'll create another to replace you. In the end, unwilling to be swapped out, the clone accepted the mission on one condition: constant protection 24/7. A few days later, the stage was set for a new chapter to unfold. After securing a body double, Haru immediately moved to the wooden house. He built himself a sanctuary where he could dive into gaming without interruption. Even Fry and Charlotte often dropped by this cozy hideout. One came to play chess, the other to watch anime on the big screen. Lately, though, Charlotte's visits had grown scarce. Curious, Haru peeked into her room and thought she might have lost interest. But it turned out she'd been drowning in deadlines and homework, leaving no time for leisure. Especially now that Haru had moved here, making her commute even tougher. Without Fly's help, she probably couldn't have made it to this place at all. To solve her travel troubles, Haru attempted to create a spatial teleportation door, basically a magic portal like Doraemon's legendary gadget. After some fiddling, to everyone's surprise, it actually worked. Who would have thought? From now on, no more endless walks, just step through the door and you're there. Today, Haru was gaming when a thought struck him. He needed to find his servant. It was a secret he couldn't reveal, so he concocted a lie about stepping outside for some fresh air, promising to return shortly. As he walked, he racked his brain trying to figure out who would be the most suitable companion. Out of nowhere, he stumbled upon a patch of land where the skeletal soldiers summoned 5 years ago were now residing. To his surprise, his psychological manipulation had worked wonders, and they remained loyal to him even today. Not only that, but these skeletons were also taking care of the magical beasts, sent by FL nurturing them with care. They cultivated vegetables and raised fish, providing ample sustenance for the creatures, even though the beasts didn't actually eat them. Walking beside Haru was the leader of the skeletons, a warm and considerate figure, managing this territory flawlessly. If only he were given some flesh, he could become an exceptional guardian for Haru. But alas, he had a knack for excessive chatter, which was why Haru decided to leave him behind. On his way back, he passed through a forest, and unexpectedly encountered a small, fearsome-looking creature, the Lem Big Sai. Though it appeared fierce, its soft, vulnerable heart reminded him of delicate young girls. Caring for this creature wouldn't be so bad, but the downside was its size. How could Haru possibly carry it? He could create magical doors, but he hadn't reached the level of crafting a pocket-sized lantern yet. When he returned, Fly caught a whiff of something amiss. Despite being a good friend, it dawned on Haru that it wouldn't be wise to bring her along, so he decided to keep this secret to himself. The next day, Fly and Charlotte ventured to visit the skeletons, having watched anime for a staggering 180 minutes daily. Charlotte whimsically named the place the Monster Garden, which had a certain charm to it. At that very moment, in a location yet to be identified, a massive blue ice dragon appeared. The adventurers sought to capture it, but it still had enough strength to soar away, landing elsewhere. News of this quickly reached the Count. Currently, the dragon lay unconscious near the border of the Empire. Although this didn't directly concern the frontier, the thought of humans relentlessly pursuing it filled the Count with dread. If the dragon became enraged, the consequences could lead to devastating sacrifices. Thus, following his father's advice, the two donned mysterious masks and approached the dragon, where adventurers were desperately trying to subdue it. With a temper as fiery as lava, FL instantly conjured a fireball and sent it hurtling towards the group. Luckily, Haru intervened just in time, or those adventurers would have been reduced to mere ashes. Ironically, the dragon they saved returned the favour, with aggression attacking in retaliation. Haru, seeing his master suffer such injustice, lashed out at the dragon, calling it an ungrateful beast, a true betrayal of their kindness. At that moment, the dragon began to take shape, realising that Ram was the one who saved it. It expressed immense gratitude. Haru, noticing the dragon's ability to communicate telepathically, just like Fly during their first encounter, posed a question, "Who are you?" But the dragon simply ignored him, turning its gaze elsewhere. Curious Fly asked why a magical beast like her would serve a human. Seizing the opportunity, Fly began recounting her own heart-wrenching tale of Linley Badass, sharing it for nearly an hour. Thankfully, the dragon was also enlightened. Otherwise, it would have been a tedious experience for him. Once it learned that Haru was the reincarnated Demon King, it became noticeably more compliant. The dragon then shared its own story of retreat, having hidden away for 300 years. During the time of the Great War, the dragon had not fought against humanity out of fear, instead withdrawing into a mountain cave for 3 centuries. One day, a wandering adventurer dropped a precious book, which the dragon read over and over until it was worn to shreds. With a thirst for knowledge that set it apart from others, it decided to venture outside to learn more. Disguised as a human, it sneaked into a town to steal books. 300 years later, an adventurer stumbled upon a precious book, reading it repeatedly until it was tattered and worn. Driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge, unlike Haru, he decided to venture outside to learn more. He transformed into a human and stealthily entered the town to steal books. But as fate would have it, he was discovered, his hiding place revealed. Not only did they burn his precious books, but they also chased him down relentlessly. Hearing this tragic tale, Fry was moved to tears, her eyes glistening with sorrow. Seeing the green dragon preparing to transform, Haru quickly created a stylish outfit for her, ensuring she wouldn't be exposed like the last time with Fly. Then, he removed the mask and introduced himself from the beginning. Noticing the girl didn't have a name, Haru thought for a moment and bestowed upon her the name Lisa. Fortunately, she loved the name he gave her, and just like that, alongside Fly, Haru had gained a powerful second ally, Liza. Instantly acknowledging the dragon as her ally, Haru allowed the dragon to join the monster forest surrounded by skeletons and green dragons. The dragon, deeply moved by Haru's kindness, vowed to serve him unconditionally. As the green dragon began to transform, he quickly created a stylish outfit for her, ensuring she wouldn't be seen in her naked glory like last time. Next, he removed his mask and began to introduce himself to the girl once more. Noticing she had no name, Haru pondered and gifted her the name Lisa. Luckily, the girl was thrilled with the name he bestowed upon her. Thus, besides his main companion, Haru now had Liza the dragon as a capable assistant. When Haru brought the cute girl Melissa home, both his mother and Charlotte readily agreed. Both were as supportive as a loving family should be, with no objections from his father. As long as Lisa adhered to the castle's rules, everything would be fine. Moments later, Haru intended to evaluate Liza's abilities. He thought there might be an intense showdown between the two, but he was mistaken. Liza simply wanted to train her to become a professional maid. However, looking at the pristine courtyard and the shining stack of dishes, it seemed far more impressive than Haru's previous attempts. Even more, the first meal Liza prepared received a 5-star rating from the entire family with no drawbacks. When Liza noticed rice stuck on Charlotte's mouth, she gently wiped it away, showcasing her kind and thoughtful nature. Liza's attention to detail was a perfect 10. Suddenly, his mother expressed the desire for Liza to act as a babysitter for Charlotte. Naturally, Liza immediately agreed without hesitation. As for Haru, he felt his spotlight had been completely usurped by Liza leaving him to sulk in a corner. In the days that followed, Liza focused intently on caring for Charlotte. She took charge of everything from daily baths to studying, even teaching her magic from A to Z without missing a beat. One day, as Haru walked by, he saw Charlotte casting a huge fireball spell. All of her impressive progress was thanks to Liza's meticulous guidance over the past few days. Haru wondered what the water floating above Liza's head was for. In fact, she was using it to wash clothes while teaching Charlotte multitasking like a pro. Haru couldn't help but silently admire her efficiency. He asked Liza if she wasn't tired from doing so much, to which she replied that she loved being active. Hearing this, Charlotte worried she might be bothering Liza too much. However, Liza reassured her that it was no trouble at all. Serving Charlotte was an honor for her. Liza's gentle, humble demeanor completely won Charlotte over, and she was thrilled to become friends. Initially hesitant due to their differing statuses, thanks to Haru's implicit approval, Liza and Charlotte became the best of friends. Suddenly, Haru remembered his pressing issue of finding a babysitter wasn't Liza the very person he desperately needed, yet seeing the two girls so close he felt he couldn't bear to separate them. But wait, wasn't his house equipped with a magical door? This meant he could take Liza to school as a babysitter and then use the magical door to send her back after. The more he thought about this perfect plan, the more satisfied he felt. Now he just needed to focus on avoiding expulsion from school. With the babysitting issue resolved today, Haru decided to tell Charlotte the truth. He had to pack up and move to the royal capital for school. Unbeknownst to him, just after he spoke, a dark aura enveloped Charlotte, signaling something ominous. She commanded Liza to gather the knights for a roundtable meeting. The main topic: discussing Haru's impending enrollment in the royal capital. As his close attendant, this revelation upset Charlotte greatly, but there was nothing she could do. She believed it was time to help Haru, as he was about to face danger. Previously, while watching a school anime, Charlotte asked Haru what school was like. Given his experiences in his past life, Haru certainly didn't have anything nice to say. He asserted that the place was terrifying and dangerous even for someone as strong as him. It seemed this school was genuinely perilous. After considering everything, Charlotte speculated there might be a mafia organization manipulating the school to destabilize the nation, which was why Haru wanted to go there to eliminate the traitors. This was the consequence of watching over 180 minutes of anime a day, folks. In light of this situation, Charlotte urged everyone to help Haru. She and Fly would head directly to the royal capital to gather information, while Z and Lem would work together to strengthen their secret forest. Surprisingly, despite the absurdity of her plan, her companions found her reasoning quite convincing and agreed to follow her lead. Cautiously, only Liza sensed something was off about this plan. Although instructed not to disclose anything to Haru that night, she secretly revealed everything to him. Haru was truly grateful to Liza because if this matter was left alone, it could lead to serious consequences. However, Liza still questioned Haru if he was indeed facing off against any organizations. Riding the wave, Haru nodded and took the opportunity to invite her along as his babysitter to the royal capital to help him deal with them. This time, with Haru admitting it himself, Liza believed him without question, and she eagerly agreed without hesitation. Time flew by faster than a dog's paw prints in a field. Before they knew it, the day of enrollment had arrived. Nothing had changed. The one heading to school with Haru was Liza. He helped her hide her horns and tail, so now she looked just like a regular human. Haru felt heartbroken seeing Liza not only steal his spotlight, but also expand her influence across the entire nation. Many noble families were involved in this organization, and rumors circulated that the Queen was the mysterious figure behind it. Furthermore, there were whispers that the Queen wanted to dethrone the king to seize power. Marion felt that only Haru could resolve this troubling issue of the royal capital. Speaking of his mother, Haru felt quite apprehensive because ever since she was adorned with that collar, she had become increasingly terrifying and unpredictable. At that moment, Liza recalled the rumours about the Dark Knight from the border, believing he might be able to assist. Unexpectedly, as the two sisters mentioned the Dark Knight, the Queen stepped in from outside. Seeing Marion staring intently at the collar around her neck, she radiated a dark aura, immediately reaching for Marion's throat until she was almost suffocated. Before they knew it, the day of enrollment had arrived. Nothing had changed. Lee was still by Haru's side as they set off for school. He had helped her conceal her horns and tail, transforming her into a girl who seemed utterly human. Watching this transformation, Fly felt a pang of sorrow. Not only had he overshadowed her brilliance, but now he would also be her loyal servant. How could such a heavy burden bear down on him? Charlotte, however, offered no words of discontent. Instead, she encouraged her brother, telling him to be at ease. The wicked would surely be brought low by justice. Meanwhile, in the royal palace, Princess Marion had just received a letter from Count Haru announcing his arrival. Unable to contain her joy, she rushed to share the news with Lee. It was he who had persuaded Marion to convince the king to allow Haru to enroll, not because he had any special feelings for Haru, but merely out of curiosity to see just how powerful he truly was. After all, Marion had been holed up in her room, refusing to emerge until the king finally agreed to let Haru join. It seemed she too was enchanted by Haru. Suddenly, Lee inquired about rumours of a mysterious organisation wreaking havoc within the academy. Marion confirmed the troubling news this group, known as the Lucy Pillars, was disguised as a religious sect with radical ideologies worshipping dark forces. They were not only active within the academy, but also sought to expand their influence throughout the kingdom. Rumours suggested that the Queen herself was the shadowy figure behind this organisation, with whispers that she aimed to dethrone the king. Marion felt that only Haru could resolve this dire issue plaguing the kingdom. Mentioning her mother sent a shiver down Haru's spine. Ever since the cursed collar had been placed upon her, she had grown increasingly terrifying and unpredictable. At that moment, Lee recalled the tales of the Black Knight from the frontier and wondered if he could enlist the knight's aid. Just then, as the sisters spoke of the Black Knight, the Queen entered the room, her gaze fixated on Marion's collar. A chilling aura enveloped her as she approached, her hand reaching out to tighten around Marion's throat until she nearly gasped for air, only releasing her grip at the last moment. But she wasn't finished. She leaned closer to Lee, whispering in his ear to extract information about the Black Knight from Haru. "If you learn anything, you must remain silent, only report to me," she commanded, her oppressive nature evident. Rumours spread that the organisation aimed to expand its influence across the kingdom, pulling many nobles into its web. Even whispers suggested the Queen herself was the mysterious force behind it all. Worse, some said she intended to overthrow the king and seize power for herself. Marion felt only Haru could untangle this deadly knot gripping the capital. Speaking of his mother, Haru grew increasingly wary. Since the strange necklace appeared on her neck, she had become more terrifying and unpredictable. At the same time, Lai recalled the rumours about the Black Knight from the borderlands, and wondered if he could be of help in this tangled mess. But just as the siblings mentioned the Black Knight, the Queen suddenly appeared, her eyes locking onto Marion and the glowing necklace around her neck. A dark aura radiated from her as she grabbed Marion by the throat, squeezing until the girl nearly choked before finally releasing her. Not done, the Queen approached Lai and whispered fiercely, ordering him to extract any information about the Black Knight from Haru. Absolute silence was demanded, only the Queen could be told. Seeing the ruthless malice in his mother's gaze, Lai realised with dread that he'd dragged Haru into something far beyond their control. Meanwhile, Charlotte reminded Haru that the day to travel to the capital had finally arrived. Hearing this, Haru sighed, deeply weary of the coming trip. Just days ago, he had set up a magical portal linking to a secret base near the capital, granting him a few more carefree days at home playing games. But now the inevitable moment had come. Fly still sulked, hoping Haru would reconsider hiring a nanny. But no matter what Haru's mind was set, and Fly got scolded so harshly she was practically bruised. Haru and Liza stepped through the portal near the forest by the capital. Flying here would be too obvious, so they chose to walk stretching their legs. Suddenly, a sharp cry echoed from below. A wild, crazed bison was rampaging wildly, chasing after the people in a horse carriage. Haru thought about Charlotte. If she saw someone in danger and he didn't help, she would surely give him a fierce scolding. Realizing he couldn't ignore this, Haru transformed into the Black Knight and charged towards the chaos. A wild bull was aggressively chasing after some people in a carriage. Haru thought about Charlotte, knowing that if she discovered he saw someone in trouble and didn't help, she would surely scold him mercilessly. Realizing he couldn't ignore the situation, Haru transformed into the Dark Knight and rushed toward the victims. The carriage was rocking dangerously as it hit a stone, nearly tipping over. Fortunately, Haru cast a barrier just in time to catch the boy on the carriage. If he hadn't, that kid would have been done for. Unable to let the situation unfold further, the brave white-haired girl stepped forward, urging everyone to flee while she held her ground. Seeing her fierce stance made Haru think that this girl must have an impressive background. He felt he could let her handle it. However, everything went terribly wrong. The moment she attempted to fight back, the bull charged and sent her flying with its powerful horns. It was clear that appearances could be deceiving. Just as the beast prepared to strike again, Haru swiftly intervened, defeating the raging bull. Noticing the serious wounds covering the white-haired girl, he immediately used healing magic to tend to her injuries, ensuring she was safe and sound. After taking care of the bull, they continued on their way to the royal capital. The girl was immensely grateful, thanking Haru and expressing her hope to meet again someday. However, Haru couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about her. As they reached the school gates, Haru was taken aback by the long lines, far more crowded than a discount sale at a grocery store. After completing his enrollment and checking into the dormitory, he felt utterly exhausted. To regain his energy, Haru created a magical door in the dorm that connected to the base. To his surprise, Charlo suddenly wanted to go out to eat in the capital, and he reluctantly agreed, bringing the girls along for a bit of fun. However, he needed to transform back into human form first. Upon arrival, everyone was captivated by the bustling streets and vibrant shops. After dining at a 5-star restaurant, Charlotte pulled out a map, wanting to survey the area, since they would be frequenting it. They decided on their assignments. Leah would scout the west, fly the south, and Charlotte and Haru would head east. The group split up, and Haru was thrilled to be spending time alone with Charlotte. She even called it a date, though Haru knew she didn't fully grasp what that meant. It made his heart race. Finally, in 2 lifetimes, he understood the feeling of a date. As they strolled together, he felt as if he were floating, overwhelmed by an indescribable happiness. Haru couldn't resist buying Charlotte a beautiful necklace when he saw how much she admired it. Lost in the sights, they accidentally bumped into the white-haired girl he had saved earlier. Upon seeing Haru, she questioned whether they had met before. Although she couldn't remember his face, she sensed his immense magical power, reminiscent of the person who saved her. Haru, however, downplayed his strength, claiming he was only at level 2. Realizing that he probably was not strong enough to have made such an impression, the girl apologized and hurried off to her interview. After she left, Charlotte revealed that she felt something unusual about her but couldn't quite pinpoint it. Haru, however, was more focused on avoiding expulsion to enjoy his carefree lifestyle. When Haru arrived at the dorm, his replica expressed frustration about being cooped up in the room for days. The replica informed him that the teacher would be coming to conduct a competency evaluation the next day, and insisted he manage it himself as she was tired of it all. After contemplating, Haru realized this could be his chance to escape the confines of this so-called school. If he simply answered the test poorly, he would surely secure a spot for expulsion. The next day, as he entered the school, he was awed by its grandeur and the fancy classrooms. The thought of making friends here was overwhelming. He tried to deliberately misunderstand the test questions to fail, yet to his surprise, he genuinely didn't understand them at all. He figured it was pointless to pretend when he might fail anyway. As he reached the last question, he recalled reading about it in the library the day before. Not wanting to fail completely, he randomly chose C for the last answer. Haru thought completing the test meant he could leave, but not quite yet. "Hey, come here so I can measure your magical power first," the teacher called. Although Haru honestly stated his level was only 2, the teacher insisted he go through the procedure. Haru resigned himself to the process, thinking it would be better for others to see just how low his power was. The teacher led him to a room overseen by a scientist, responsible for measuring magical power. However, when he entered, he was confused to find no one there except for a tiny, cute scientist who looked like a little Lolita. Is there a mix-up here, he wondered. No need to pretend he had probably failed. But when he got to the last question, Haru remembered he'd just read it at the library. Scoring 0 would be humiliating, so he boldly gave it a C just to avoid the failing grade. Thinking the test was over, he sighed in relief, only to be called back for a magic power test. Though Haru admitted his magic power was barely level 2, the teacher insisted on a full checkup. "All right, old geezer," Haru muttered. "Seeing is believing." He figured it was better for others to witness his weak magic firsthand than just hear rumours. The teacher led him to a room where a doctor specialised in magic measurement worked. But inside no one seemed quite right, except for a tiny adorable figure with eyes on her head. Wait, what kind of doctor looks like a cute Lolita doll? The author must be joking. Did being small and cute disqualify her from being a serious researcher? Clearly sensing Haru's skepticism, the little doctor introduced herself confidently as Dr. Tairi, an expert in ancient magic. She warned him not to act cocky here, or she'd kick him out on the spot. That was just perfect Haru's kind of challenge. Little did he know she could read minds and was amused at how thrilled he was about possibly getting expelled. She guessed he was excited because he'd never seen someone about to be kicked out so happy. But Haru wasn't reading her thoughts correctly. He was actually staring at her chest, not her mind. The little doctor caught on and smirked at his obvious distraction, while Haru just rolled his eyes and urged her to hurry up with the magic measurement. Finally, the doctor allowed Haru to proceed. This time, his magic power shattered the measuring orb, completely a rare feat that should have angered her. Instead, she praised his extraordinary courage for honestly admitting his weaknesses during the test. Watching the little doctor's antics was a real spectacle. Haru was bored stiff but reminded her to get on with the test so he could head home and relax. In the end, despite breaking the magic orb, the doctor's approval was a surprising boost to his confidence. So he thought for sure she would be furious and kick him out. But life doesn't always go as expected. The professor actually praised the extraordinary strength he must possess to shatter such a sphere. Not only that, she admired his incredible courage for honestly admitting his ignorance. The doctor emphatically declared her wish to take me on as her apprentice in the lab. Who would want to follow such an eccentric lady? Without a second thought, I flatly refused and turned to leave. Lost this round? No worries, I'll just play another hand. The next day, I created a third clone to send to school for me. Since the clones lack magic, Haru had to ask Charlotte to give him a self-defense gun. After all, they were just clones, no freedom or resistance. The clone reluctantly trudged to school, weighed down by despair, waiting endlessly for the end of class. Planning to sneak away quietly, he stumbled upon a group that looked like they were up to no good. His instincts from a past life warned him getting involved with this crowd would surely spell trouble. So, he decided to slip away unnoticed. Suddenly, the leader of the gang pointed at him, barking orders to freeze. When he looked up, he realized they were pointing at the white-haired girl from before. Curiosity piqued, but he thought better of it, no need to draw attention to himself, but fate had other plans. With his head down, he collided with two towering figures. The blonde guy turned irritation etched on his face when he realized he'd disrespected a royal. Yet the white-haired girl boldly stated she had just arrived and was unaware of any such rules. Well, who even established those? It was just some arbitrary law put in place by the prince. Did these commoners dare speak against it? Haru, standing on the sidelines, wanted nothing to do with this mess. He used the excuse of a Taoist retreat to sneak away. But it seemed the prince caught on to his teasing. Hot-headed as he was, he unleashed a magic attack right at Haru. With no magic of his own, the clone could only brace for impact. Thankfully, Haru had placed a barrier around him, so besides a tattered outfit, he emerged unscathed. We live a peaceful life, he thought, yet as he lowered his head, he accidentally bumped into two heavyweights. The blonde-haired boy turned anger flashing in his eyes as they realized they had encountered royalty without showing proper respect. However, the white-haired girl insisted that she had just arrived and learned that the school had no such rules. What kind of rules are those? Haru muttered. None at all, but the crown prince made them. You lowly peasants dare to question. Haru stood aside, not wanting to get tangled in their drama. Using a Tao Chao's expel excuse, he dared to mock the prince. But the hot-tempered guy immediately launched a magic attack at him. Since the copy had no magic, it couldn't fight back. Luckily, Haru had shielded it with a protective barrier, so only its clothes got torn. The blonde noble looked suspicious when he saw Haru unharmed. Quick on his feet, Haru switched to his fake actor mode, but anyone could tell he was faking. The prince grew even angrier, ignoring his subordinates' warnings, and unleashed a full-power assault. Without defending the copy, would be doomed. Haru drew his gun and coolly blocked the hits, then dodged away in shameful retreat. Seeing the battered copy return, Haru felt guilty, but knew it was necessary. "I'll clean this mess up, go rest for now." The next day, a subordinate of the noble delivered a challenge letter to Haru. Though called a challenge, Haru had no choice but to accept. Refusing meant humiliation. Usually, defeating this guy would be a piece of cake, but now Haru was posing as an utterly average student. The odds were grim, and defeat seemed inevitable. But Haru dreaded the pain the fight might bring. At that moment, on his Sony TV screen, a white-haired girl appeared talking with the noble's subordinate. Soon after, she was led away, setting the stage for the battle ahead. All he could do was brace himself for a humiliating defeat. But Haru was terrified of pain. Meanwhile, on his Sony TV screen, he saw the image of a white-haired girl talking to the noble's subordinate. She was being led to the count's palace because she felt responsible for today's mess and wanted to apologize. She was willing to do anything to get the count to withdraw the challenge. Unbeknownst to her, that scoundrel Nida had other plans. He demanded that she perform a lewd dance for him. Hearing this, Haru felt his blood boil. Yet shockingly, the white-haired girl agreed to his demand. Being too naive wasn't good at all. One by one, pieces of her clothing were discarded until only her underwear remained. Just when she could bear it no longer, the light suddenly went out. A dark knight appeared, tossing her a garment to cover herself. Moments later, Haru unleashed a torrent of reprimands, scolding her for being so gullible. "You need to value yourself more, do you understand? If I hadn't shown up, you would have been done for today." After escorting her back to the dormitory, he set off to deal with that arrogant noble himself. With a magical seal driven straight into the shoulder wound he had sustained from this morning's battle, Haru swore he was there to punish him for 3 major offences. First, his egregious arrogance and bullying of his peers. Second, his public challenge against Haru, a citizen of the noble family. Third, his lewd intentions towards innocent girls. These 3 charges alone merited a one-way ticket to the afterlife, but Haru decided to show mercy this time. "If you change your ways, I'll remove the seal, but if you try to take it off yourself, you will lose that arm for good." The noble seemed to think he was above Haru's warning, but after testing his luck, he soon realized how foolish he was for not heeding Haru's words. After the punishment, Haru turned and walked away, leaving the noble seething with anger collapsed at his post. However, with his stubborn nature, the noble swore he would make Haru suffer 100 times more than the pain he was currently experiencing. The following day, Haru was summoned to school by the teachers. He feared that after causing trouble with the noble, he would surely be suspended for disturbing the peace. "A secret pact for redemption. If you change, little brother, I'll remove the pin from your shoulder. But if you pull it out on your own, say goodbye to your arm, darling. This guy thought he could defy the rules of our house, ignoring your warnings. Trying to remove the pin, foolish beyond belief. He refused to trust your words and ended up in unbearable pain. Punishment delivered." Haru turned away boldly, leaving the furious count collapsed on the spot. Yet with stubborn pride, this guy won't submit. He's sworn to make Haru taste pain 100,000 times worse than his own. The next day, Haru arrived at school expecting suspension for causing a scene with the count. But instead of punishment, teachers showered him with praise. They admired his courage to stand up to that arrogant noble. It turns out the faculty despises that bully as much as the students do. Not just the teachers, upperclassmen and underclassmen alike, buzzed with whispers about the incident. Just as boredom settled in, Haru encountered the young prodigy doctor again. Remembering the last time and the doctor's curiosity, Haru preemptively declined any further probing. But this persistent little doctor clung on like a leech, refusing to give up despite Haru's cold refusals. Determined, she insisted on sitting down to explain the allure of the academy's curriculum, revealing 2 distinct tracks everyone must belong to. First, the night course, designed to forge elite soldiers, the backbone of the kingdom's military force. In the midst of this commotion, the white-haired girl approached Haru. The three others assumed she was another competitor for his attention. Haru, sensing the tension, quickly seized the opportunity to excuse himself, claiming he had an appointment with the white-haired girl. Marion's heart sank at the sight, thinking Haru had some ambiguous relationship with her. Without any preamble, the white-haired girl directly asked Haru if he was the same person from yesterday. That question struck Haru like a bolt of lightning, triggering his instinctive alertness. She continued expressing that her first impression of him hadn't changed, but she sensed that yesterday he lacked any magical power, while today his magic was potent enough to push others away. But seeing this unfamiliar figure, he decided to keep a close watch first. Suddenly, Marion's voice rang out from behind, and it hit him. This tall, muscular guy was the rebellious prince from before. Now the siblings wanted to ask Haru about his course choice. Marion suggested Haru join the night course with her, but Lai, standing nearby, immediately objected. "No way, he's joining the cavalry with me." "Who are you two? I've had my eye on Haru from the start." Lai then noticed the tiny doctor nearby. Recognizing her as the renowned Dr. Terry, he felt a strange pride. But then Lai whispered a warning to Haru. "Sure, she's famous, but for being crazy and weird. She's always clashing with the other teachers." In short, if Haru wants peace, he should steer clear of her. Sensing Lai's gossip, the tiny doctor snapped back sharply. And so the three argued back and forth like shoppers fighting over discounts, no one willing to back down. Haru watched the chaos, utterly exhausted. "Can I just get some peace, please?" Amid the squabble, a white-haired girl approached Haru. The others braced for another challenger, but Haru seized the moment, claiming he had an appointment with her, and slipped away quickly. Marion's heart twisted painfully, suspecting something deeper between Haru and this mysterious girl. Outside, the white-haired girl wasted no time cutting straight to the chase. She asked if he was the same person from yesterday. Hearing this, Haru felt the weight of secrets and questions hanging between them. It was as if men had hit the bullseye, unwittingly triggering an invisible alert barrier. The white-haired girl added that actually, her first impression of him hadn't changed, but she sensed something different. Yesterday he showed no trace of magical power, yet today it surged so fiercely it could blast someone away. More than that, she discovered he was setting up an invisible barrier, something she hadn't seen before, only felt. How could this girl be so gifted? Not only could she distinguish the real him from his copies, but she could also detect his invisible magical barriers. The Magic Academy had once mentioned the terrifying pressure his magic exerted. He asked the white-haired girl if he was part of the demon clan. Hearing this, she panicked, checking herself thoroughly, and found nothing unusual. She firmly declared she was 100% human and begged him not to say such things. Noticing her strange way of speaking, but sensing no hostility, he decided to lift the barrier for now. As for her concerns, it would be best if she could let go of the idea that there were two versions of him. If not, well, he was at a loss too. At least for now he couldn't reveal anything more, and hoped she'd keep this secret until the end of their days. Surprisingly, she happily agreed. In truth, that secret was just a side note for her at this meeting. Now, on to the main matter. See, listen carefully. First, she wanted to apologize for dragging him into unnecessary trouble. Next, she thanked him for saving her from that nobleman's attack. Finally, she hoped he would. "This meeting with you is just a side note. Let's get to the main business. Hey, perk up your ears and listen closely. First, I want to apologize for dragging you into unnecessary trouble. Next, thank you for saving her from that noble's attack. Finally, I hope you. Intrigued by her loneliness, you can't help but ask why she lacks friends. She begins to recount her tragic tale, a life filled with despair. Abandoned not once but 4 times, all because she could speak the moment she was born. At this, a memory strikes you, your first encounter with her. You remember how startled you were when she spoke. It's not every day you see a girl from the demon clan so shaken. What would any human do in front of a talking newborn? Staying calm would definitely raise eyebrows. With nowhere else to go, she ended up in an orphanage, but even there she couldn't make friends. Hearing this, you feel her pain and realize her story is even more tragic than yours. But you relate to her deeply, both in this life and the previous one you've walked alone without friends. Yet, she believes that the two of you radiate a lonely glow that makes you worthy of each other's friendship. To be isolated is something to be proud of. Why does she look so joyful about it? With her enthusiasm, you relent and agree to be her friend. Curious, you ask which class she plans to choose. Unfortunately, she picks the ancient magic course taught by that peculiar professor. But what can you do? You've already committed to this friendship. You think that attending the same class might bring you both closer, so you decide to join her in that course. Her face lights up with a smile that could rival the sun, making your heart skip a beat. At that very moment, in another part of town, Charlotte is feeling the absence of her brother, who's been gone for days. Fly, still reeling from not being able to go with Haru, is aching to understand, was FL really that close to the Demon King in their past life? Of course, FL proudly claims to be the Demon King's best friend in their previous life. The Demon King was kind-hearted, always thinking of his people, the demons and the spirits. But this kindness often led him into conflicts with other demon factions regarding humans. Because of his benevolence, FL frequently had to step in to mediate. The Demon King dreamed of creating a paradise where demons and humans could coexist. Now that Fly reflects on it, perhaps the Demon King didn't want to battle Princess Shenguang and purposely lost. Now that Fly reflects on it, it's highly likely that the Demon King didn't want to fight Princess Shimmer and purposely lost. When attacked by the princess, the Demon King let the entire demon race flee, staying behind to battle alone, sacrificing himself for his ideals. Before that, the Demon King had nurtured a plan to reincarnate as a human. He wished to change humanity's perception of demons from the roots. Yet the Demon King was born from the very hands that sought to kill him, cast aside without mercy. Harry once said, after reincarnation, all previous memories are lost. Fly thinks it's possible he did this to discard the sweet yet cruel aspects of his former self, especially since the Demon King always favoured simplicity. The moment Fly heard Harry simplify his name upon their first meeting, "Sir Omajawang," a revered Demon King, yet he didn't even know the name of the person before him, so Fly had to enlighten that little one. Our great Demon King's name is Iris Philia. Coincidentally, at Harry's place, the girl with white hair introduced herself as Iris Philia, a name identical to the Demon King. Since she's a counterfeit Demon King, Haru also doesn't know the real Demon King's name. Thus, upon hearing the white-haired girl's name, he had no suspicion. It's just a long name. So he shortened it to Iris for brevity. Surprisingly, Iris also had the habit of simplifying names just like him. It's been ages since she met someone who shares that same inclination. She was quite pleased. To elevate their friendship, Iris suggested they choose classes together. "Sure, if you want, let's head back to my room to pick," she said. Wait, this sounds like something a playboy would say. As they approached the door, Harry suddenly remembered that Iris was a girl and was going to his room. It felt awkward to refuse, so he hurried things along and planned to escort her back quickly. When Haru opened the door, he found Charlotte inside, watching TV, shocked to see Haru bringing a girl home. Thankfully, Haru explained in time so she didn't misunderstand. Upon learning Iris was his friend, Charlotte politely greeted her. When it came time to pick classes, Haru wanted to roll the dice to make a choice easier, but he ended up overthinking it. With no other option, he asked Charlotte to choose for him. After just a few minutes of deliberation, she picked every single option. Trusting his little sister entirely, Haru didn't bother to double-check. During this time, Charlotte began praising her brother's excellence, so how could he not excel at any subject? Fearing Iris would discover he was the famed Black Warrior, he intended to send her home. With the goal of complimenting her brother accomplished, Charlotte obediently excused herself without a hint of objection. For Iris to discover the magical door was complicated, so Haru had to cover her eyes as Charlotte left. Afterward, they both agreed to help each other in the upcoming new school year. The new academic year was about to officially commence. Haru was awakened by Charlotte feeling more despondent than ever. According to the class ranking after the entrance exam, the young man had been placed in class C, but that suited him just fine. Staying in that class forever wouldn't be a problem at all. Suddenly, Charlotte announced an incredible opportunity for the students in Class C, a chance to rise to Class A. All they had to do was excel in the mid-year survey, and they would be elevated without question. Despite his initial reluctance to share his feelings, Harry found some comfort in Charlotte's encouraging embrace. Early that morning, he and Lisa stepped out only to find Iris waiting for them. The two girls exchanged introductions, and soon the trio was on their way to school. Iris was quite surprised that Haru had been placed in Class C. However, she believed that the mid-year survey would be a piece of cake for him, so she was sure he would soon join her in Class A. As Iris entered the classroom, she noticed that, like before, Lisa still couldn't quite figure out if she was human or magical. But as long as she meant no harm, there was nothing to worry about. Upon entering, Haru was met with a flood of curious gazes. He hadn't even done anything to warrant such attention, but it seemed the rumours about him had already spread throughout the school. As the classroom filled with students, the teacher declared the start of the mid-year survey. When the questions were handed out, Haru thought to himself that this time he would fully unleash his potential and stick it out in Class C. But wait, why were these questions so ridiculously easy? Hadn't Charlotte crafted similar questions for elementary school students 6 months ago? Why were high school students being given such simple tests? If the test was this easy, then surely the teacher must suspect he was purposely getting them wrong. After much contemplation, Haru decided to aim for a solid score of 6. However, when the teacher reviewed the papers, he shook his head in dismay, announcing that the results were less than stellar. Most students had scored below average. Haru was utterly confused. How could they struggle with such easy questions? And as expected, Haru's score of 6 turned out to be the highest in the class. Applause erupted as everyone praised the prodigy of their class, with the coveted spot in Class A now solely his. It dawned on Haru that this dilemma wasn't due to his exceptional intelligence or the inferiority of his classmates. It was simply because his talented younger sister had been taking high school level tests instead. But now it was too late to turn back. He was now facing the bitter reality of being thrust into Class A. As he settled into his new seat, both Iris and Lisa rushed over to claim him. There was no way they'd let him escape to sit elsewhere. Their competitive spirits ignited a fiery tension in the air. Just then, their stern teacher entered the classroom. She introduced herself as Miss Beogam, and with a sharp finger, she pointed directly at the trio, making a ruckus in the corner. She was not pleased that first-year students dared to enroll in her difficult subject while causing chaos during class. It seemed these first years were quite the rebels. Not only did they challenge her class, but they also dared to join her research program. With fire in her eyes, she vowed to keep a close watch on Haru and Iris. The tension in the room escalated as Miss Beogam began her inquiry. She wanted to ask them some preliminary questions about their primary and secondary attributes during the lesson, as well as their magical indices. She called Iris up first to measure her magical index. Despite scoring a mere 5 out of 35, Miss Beogam recognised Iris as a potential talent worth nurturing. However, Iris had no intention of abandoning her magical studies for a mere promise of advancement. She was determined to stay true to her path. The next question was about magical indices, and after a convoluted explanation that left everyone baffled, Ms. Beogam began her questioning. She specifically called on Lei to respond. After a moment of thought, he offered up an answer, but it was quickly dismissed because it didn't align with current research. At that moment, Haru unexpectedly blurted out the answer. Hidden attributes. Ms. Beogam slammed her hand on the desk, causing everyone to jump. She was stunned and demanded to know how he had come to know this answer, which was originally from an anonymous researcher named Rebirth in a report that had yet to be made public. How did he know? Was he perhaps the elusive scholar himself? If you want to research grand magic, you have to be absolutely loyal to it. The second question was about digitization. First, the professor gave some theory, but honestly, it was so confusing I couldn't make heads or tails of it. After her lecture, she posed the next question, targeting a specific student. The young man thought for a moment and gave an answer, but the professor rejected it, saying the research didn't fit reality. Then, out of nowhere, Harry blurted out the hidden attribute. Right away, the professor slammed the table, dizzying him, and asked why he knew that answer. That answer belonged to an anonymous doctor named reported yearly, but never publicly released. How could Haru guess it? She suspected, could he be that mysterious doctor himself? Haru laughed it off, saying, "No way I'm some genius like that." Actually, he had studied the attribute before, but only shared it with the Kara group. He was curious who that doctor really was, but hadn't figured it out yet. Though not that doctor, his flawless answer earned him top marks. Immediately, the professor played her old trick, inviting Haru to her experimental lab, openly tempting students from other departments, a violation of rules. Was she not afraid of the young prodigy stealing her spotlight tonight? Yet she persisted with her tempting offers. The next day, Haru and Iris had to go to the child prodigy's research facility to register. The moment the professor laid eyes on these two mysterious factors, her joy was palpable. This research facility could remain open after all. Today was supposed to be Haru's turn to present, but due to his pleas, a substitute had taken his place. However, just as he was about to sneak away, the professor called them into her office. "Look at this. It's just like a scene from a murder investigation." "Wait, he's not dead," just immobilized, the professor explained. "Yesterday, this young man had come seeking salvation, cursed by some magic. Upon examination, she found a transparent rod embedded in his shoulder. In cases like this, using restorative magic would only amplify the pain." The child prodigy was eager to interrogate the golden-haired lad about who had inflicted this wound. After interrogating him, since yesterday, he was still tight-lipped. "I'm at my limit," she declared. With that, she flipped him over and began slapping him relentlessly, demanding he reveal the perpetrator behind this dark magic. When she finally saw his face, Haru recognized him as the Count Nida, the same arrogant figure from before. "Don't you know who I am? How dare you restrain me?" he bellowed. "Oh, I know exactly who you are, the troublesome Count, but I must inform you, even my high-level magic can't help you now. If you want to live, spill the beans. Otherwise, your fate is sealed." Realizing the gravity of the situation, Nida finally opened up. He revealed that, on the night of the incident, a mysterious figure in black had threatened him, punishing him as he was now. The child prodigy sensed he was still hiding something, but she could piece together who it might be. In the Count's territory, there was a dark warrior known for eliminating the weak, matching the description Nida provided. "Of course, I know," she replied, "but that wicked Count wants you to know that even I, the child prodigy, am at a loss when it comes to such advanced magic. So, if you want to live, you better spill the beans, or else." As the situation grew more dire, Nier finally confessed. He recounted how on that fateful night, a mysterious figure in black had threatened him. The child prodigy sensed that Nier was still hiding something, but now she had a good idea of who it might be. A dark knight who preyed on the weak, exactly as Nier had described. However, T was skeptical. Just a short while ago, Haru had been in the borderlands where dark knights roamed. Now he had just arrived in the royal capital, and yet the dark knight had appeared here too. Realizing T suspected him of being the dark knight, Haru felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. "Oh no, why do these issues always seem to involve me?" he thought desperately. "Help me, the real me." At that very moment, the real Haru, donning the guise of the Dark Knight, made his entrance to dispel any doubts. He boldly proclaimed, "I am the Dark Knight, and I am completely unrelated to Haru. My mission is simply to travel from south to north, eliminating wicked beings." He then turned his attention to Nier, who was still on the ground, and declared, "Listen here, you foolish noble. If you comply with my demands and retract your challenge, I shall show you mercy and dispel the enchantment on you." Nier was seething with anger, but dared not utter another word. "Take tonight to think it over," Haru said as he prepared to leave. But before he could, he found himself ensnared by Miss Beogam's magic. She insisted he answer 7749 questions about ancient magic before she would release him. However, those ropes were nothing to him. With a flick, they dissipated to thin air. Not only that, but I couldn't move at all. Nevertheless, fueled by her relentless curiosity, she was determined to keep me around for answers. Just when she thought she had the upper hand, nature called, and the once arrogant lady was now begging me to set her free so she could relieve herself. With her dignity on the line, she had no choice but to comply with my conditions. She could no longer investigate me. In such a frantic moment, she nodded vigorously, swearing on her honor. "Just let me go. I'm about to wet my pants," she cried. With that, I released her and I strolled away, no longer fearing her suspicion about my true identity. That night, the little doctor threw a lavish party to welcome the 2 new members who joined her research team after all these years. It was understandable, but I felt trapped, forced to endure this pointless celebration when all I wanted was to go home. I had to sit there like a statue, all while being subjected to the bizarre stares from Professor Picos. Unable to withstand it any longer, I turned to the professor and asked, "What are you staring at?" "It wasn't anything serious," he replied. "Just that we seem to share a resemblance, both looking a bit reluctant to be at this party." His words struck a chord with me, so I decided to change the topic and asked him why he was always seen alongside the little doctor. Surprisingly, he revealed that he used to tutor her, and although she looked a bit lost now, she had been a prodigy in modern magic since childhood. He taught her everything he knew, but eventually there was nothing left to teach, prompting her to enroll in this school. She stayed on to teach a rare talent in the modern magical world, yet somehow she ended up switching to studying ancient magic, which left him feeling utterly disappointed. Despite his countless efforts to steer her back, he had no choice but to follow her into this ancient magic research, and it had been years since they achieved anything significant. The more he pondered, the more his despair deepened. I couldn't help but notice his gloomy state and wanted to comfort him. However, the more I tried to console him, the worse he seemed to get. Meanwhile, Iris, under the little doctor's psychological manipulation, had indulged a bit too much in alcohol, leading her to act rather recklessly. So suddenly Iris charged at me, insisting we toast together, but after some nonsensical antics, she wanted to thank me for joining her in this bizarre class. Just as Iris drifted off to sleep, the little doctor arrived, eager to share her findings. This time, she revealed why Iris had joined the ancient magic study. During the annual assessment, when measuring Iris's magical power, the little doctor discovered she possessed all elemental attributes: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, but her magic index was a mere 5 out of 35, an incredibly low score for someone with such attributes. She was keen to research ways to enhance magical indices using ancient magic, which was why Iris was so eager to be part of this project. Just as she finished her explanation, the alcohol took its toll and she passed out. Meanwhile, Professor Picos was snoring loudly. Back at Count Nida's castle, he was still furious about having to withdraw the challenge letter. He had allied with a heretical cult merely to help his father ascend to power, and now he couldn't let this embarrassment slip into the public eye. The only way to keep this a secret was to eliminate anyone involved. Quickly, he summoned his elite assassin team. Once they confirmed that the 4 targets were sound asleep and had set up soundproofing, they launched a surprise attack. They charged in with everything they had, only to crash into a wall, shocked to find their target still unharmed. Upon investigation, they discovered transparent walls surrounding the house. They tried every method imaginable to break through, but nothing worked. Suddenly, a door appeared before them. Thinking they had breached the barrier, they eagerly opened it, only to discover it was the magical door of my mansion, sending them straight to the border of the neighbouring country without them losing a dime. Seeing their comrades vanish into thin air, one of them unleashed his energy toward that direction, but no matter how many moves he made, the door swallowed it whole. Instantly, countless other doors materialized, each one beckoning with the call, "Open door." Just as the Dark Knight appeared, one of them launched an attack at him. You think the Dark Knight is that easy to defeat? With their eyes wide, they saw numerous knights standing at the ready, prepared for battle, but all those figures were mere illusions designed to bait them. I, the real Dark Knight, was sitting right above them. The attacker attempted to strike again, but why rely on the same trick? With just a snap of my fingers, I rendered 2 of the assassins completely immobile. If they dared to approach me, they'd better spill everything they knew if they wanted to live. Taking the assassins to confront Nida, he initially attempted to deny everything. But look here. I had installed cameras in the house capturing perfect footage of his crimes. With the irrefutable evidence, Nida realized he couldn't escape the truth. Fearing that I would continue to torment him, he quickly produced a syringe from a box. After injecting the liquid, he transformed into a creature resembling the Titans from Attack on Titan. Caught off guard and slightly underestimating him, I was sent flying like a bird. In this scene, the perfect crime is captured, leaving Nier with no choice but to face his fears of being relentlessly hunted down by Haru. In a moment of desperation, he pulls out a syringe from a box. As the liquid flows into his veins, he transforms unrecognizable, reminiscent of the Titans from Attack on Titan. Caught off guard and perhaps underestimating his foe Haru, is sent flying like a wounded bird against the monstrous, grotesque form of Nier. As he grapples with how to confront this nightmarish titan, Charlotte urgently calls out, revealing that someone has been taken over by this creature. With a plea that tugs at his heartstrings, Charlotte begs him to save that person. Faced with his precious little sister's earnest request, Haru cannot turn away. He sets up a live feed for Charlotte to witness, pledging to fulfill her wish. Wasting no time, he charges into battle armed only with a standard box. However, it becomes clear that this box is ineffective against Nier's titan-like form. Haru nearly finds himself crushed in the process. Realizing that one box won't cut it, he recruits multiple boxes, finally managing to restrain Nier's monstrous arms. Yet Nier, undeterred by the loss of his limbs, swiftly regrows them. This is no ordinary foe. It's a true titan. He managed to pin down the giant's arms and escape. However, the creature, undeterred by the loss of his two arms, was determined to break free from Haru's control. To everyone's shock, those arms began to regenerate quickly. This was definitely Titan-level regeneration. At that moment, Charlotte continued her communication with Haru. The young girl noticed that after losing his arms, the giant shrank in size and his colour faded. It dawned on Haru that if they could gradually remove the flesh from his body, this monster could revert to his normal form. "Well done, Charlotte," he exclaimed, proud of his sister. "I'll put an end to this battle right now." With that, Haru summoned a downpour of swords, launching a relentless assault on the beast, and indeed, he returned to his normal state. Fortunately, Haru was quick to hide the gruesome sight from Charlotte. Otherwise, it would have been a disaster. With the battle concluded, Charlotte excused herself to get some sleep, leaving the aftermath to Haru. However, as he approached the giant for further negotiations, the creature displayed a terrified expression and fled, resembling a frightened puppy. It seemed he would have to wait until the giant calmed down for another interrogation. For now, he decided to spare the creature's life. With everything settled, Haru turned to inform his clone C about the progress. "Everything is in order, little bro. You can continue your sweet dreams and I'll handle things here." The clone listened and thought, "I've been patient with you for a long time now." The next morning, Flay and Lozar went to scout the royal capital, only to encounter some clueless thugs. They had to teach them a lesson before they spilled any information. Upon their return, a roundtable meeting commenced. It appeared that a covert civil war was brewing between the Queen and rival factions within the kingdom. Charlotte immediately shared footage of Haru's explosive battle against the giant. Based on their observations, she speculated that the creature was a spy from the dark organization manipulating the school they were investigating. Even though she knew her brother would handle the situation, Charlotte wanted to lend her support to Haru. "Rest easy, little bro. I'll handle things here. You just take it easy and get ready for school tomorrow." The next morning, Flay and Loser set out to scout the situation in the royal capital, only to stumble upon some troublemakers. A gentle inquiry quickly escalates into a brawl, as they find that the only way to get answers is through a good fight. Upon their return, a roundtable meeting is convened. The whispers of a civil war brewing in the royal capital between the Queen and rival factions create a tense atmosphere. Charlotte promptly shares footage of Haru's explosive battle with Nier from the previous night. Charlotte suspects that Nier is a spy entangled in the shadowy organization manipulating their school. Though she knows her brother might be headstrong as his sister, she wishes to lend her strength to Haru. The plan is set to infiltrate the school and dismantle the dark organization piece by piece. To her surprise, everyone unanimously agrees. Everyone decided to put their strength behind Haru. First, they would infiltrate the school, then slowly dismantle the dark organization. Surprisingly, this plan was quickly embraced by all. The secret group named Camouflage Carp was formed, and everyone vowed to carry out the mission flawlessly to ease Haru's burdens. Meanwhile, at their base, Haru observed the secret meeting. Not knowing who would bear the heaviest load next, he realized that to keep everyone safe during this investigation, he needed to watch carefully. It seemed a cult linked to the Queen truly existed in the kingdom, balancing protecting his quirky Chara friends and pursuing his passion for freeloading. Haru thought this was no longer a matter to leave to others. It was time for him to take action and wipe out those obstructing his path to dreams. But how? Men's journey to exterminate these villains will unfold. My friends will have